Hi, and welcome to episode 9 of the Edtech Show with myself, Bookie Yusuf, and we have a jam-packed episode ahead of us, shall I say. Really excited to share the features today, which include esports, CPD, Edtech, and that will be led by Ollie, and Assistive Technology, the report by myself. But what I'd rather do is have our co-host for this evening join us in. So, Ronan and Ollie, would you like to say hello and share how you've been?
Yeah, hiya, Bucky. Yeah,
Hi.
it's been another busy month. You know what schools are like. Reports, of course, on top of everything else. But
Mhm.
yeah, really looking forward to half term. Almost there.
I think so. Exam season, we're in the thick of it now, aren't we?
Absolutely, yeah. Over here in the Middle East, IB exams have just finished. We had our graduation ceremony for the Year 13s last night. We're end of year exams, so we're a little bit behind Ronan in the report sense. We've got all of that assessment coming our way very shortly. And then a conference this weekend for teachers in Abu Dhabi. So, never a dull moment, Bookie and Ronan.
Pretty much that's full on. When do you have time to actually relax?
I drink lots of coffee.
All right, I need to make sure I get you the largest size mug when you come back to the UK.
And how are your preparations coming along, Ollie, for moving back?
Not too bad, actually. Thank you. We put an offer in on a house. That's been accepted. We found a school for our daughter. I've been doing a little bit of work with our fourth co-host, Mr. Anderson, along with Jenny and the team at Thomas Deacon Education Trust. So really excited to get on the aeroplane on July the 10th, see my family, move house. All the excitement of a new house and unpacking and building IKEA furniture before starting work, sending my daughter off to her new school. Yeah, just can't wait. Really excited.
Fair play.
It's one of those things you kind of wait, don't you? And then suddenly everything happens all at once in a really narrow window. You think you're not going to make it, and then it all happens. So buzzing. Can't wait.
Fantastic. And you'll need to reacclimatize to the British weather because it's not very sunny today or very warm. So but we're great to see you back in the UK.
It's I don't mind that. It's quite warm at the moment. I'm looking forward to 20 degrees or more decrease in temperature. But listen, if you're watching along, whether you're watching live or you're watching the show back, please do say hi to us and throw your comments in the chat on whatever platform you're on. And please do ask some questions of us. It'd be great to get some audience participation involved in May's episode of the Edtech Show.
Fantastic. So with that, Ollie, I'll hand straight over to you so you can actually share your news and then your feature for this evening.
Thanks, Bookie. My news is the recent release on the 23rd of March, relatively recent, from the British government on meeting digital and technology standards in schools and colleges. They've released these standards relative to IT services and digital equipment. There's some interesting reading in there. There's quite a lot to unpick, I think. There are 4 kind of key strands. There's broadband internet standards for schools and colleges, network switching standards for schools and colleges, network cabling standards, and then wireless network standards. And I think now more than ever is probably an important time for us to take stock, digest, and think about our action plans over the coming years ahead to making sure that not only we meet those standards, but we're forward planning for the years ahead, the continuation of learning, developing skills for all stakeholders, and ensuring that our systems are fit for purpose. So there's some interesting reading in there. You can find out more by reading the URL that Mark, thank you, Mark, very kindly has put together. So please do check out those new standards and see where you're at and what you need to do within your organisations to continue the digital development that we're all within in the current day and age. So that's my news, Bookie.
Thank you, Ollie. Okay, would you like to go straight into your video feature?
Sure, I will do. I'm just going to share my video file. My video feature is all about how two different organisations are approaching professional development using educational technology. So without further ado, I will dive straight into the video. In my report this month, I speak to two leaders in different institutions within education to find out how they're driving professional learning supported by educational technology, not only to drive and improve outcomes for students, but also develop skill sets in all stakeholders in their schools.
My name is Conrad Taylor. I'm the Business, Learning and Development Manager at Technologist Manager at City of Government College. Been there for over 22 years now, so I do know a bit about technology in this case in the college. I'm responsible for the digital upskilling of staff and students, and also all the systems to do with teaching and learning, and also ensuring that where technology could be utilized in the institution for effective business practices. So that's my role within the system, basically. I was officially a teacher for 15 years. I teach programming and web design, and then I moved up to advanced teacher practitioner, and now as a business learning and development manager for the college.
My name is Anthony Agar. I'm currently assistant head teacher at Aberystwyth School in Pontypool. So Aberystwyth School is an 11 to 16 comprehensive school in the South Wales Valleys, serving a community which is socially deprived. So approximately 38% of our learners are from free school meal backgrounds. And I've been at the school now for 6 years. So in my role as assistant head teacher, one of the aspects of my role is professional learning for staff. But also another part of the role is looking at digital technology. So in recent years, I've tried to marry the two together.
I think for me, in terms of the approach that we've used to innovate CPD with EdTech, it's actually first understanding what staff want. And over the years, we've done many different approaches. But with the pandemic, we've actually adopted. When I say adopted, and that is first surveying our staff, okay? Surveying to understand what they want, because we didn't want it basically to be where staff just come, turn up and think this piece is not relevant to me. So we do survey our staff using the GIS insight survey to understand their needs, their digital experience, and what they need. From that, what we've done, we start personalizing CPD by actually creating micro courses using Microsoft Form or Google Forms, basically. And these are actually short courses with videos included, which is screencasting, where we've done internally. And actually, as we go through the courses, we've actually got short questions to ask the staff and short activities. So we'll play the video to say, watch this activity or techniques for the classroom. You then go off and try it. You then come back and answer the question about your rating in terms of how confident you are. And based on your rating going through that program, we will then evaluate that and then put on personalized workshop for all those staff that are not yet confident by going through the self-directed study. And that's one way we've done that. We've also gone to innovative approach known as Snack and Chat. Now, this is where we've opened the discussion out to staff to say, what topics would you like to discuss? Staff would email us in, and also possibility topics that we want to share. And what we do then, basically, we facilitate an in-house show where we discuss those topics that are sent in, and staff can tune in whenever they want, and they can watch the pre-recording in this case. So those are just some of the innovative activity that innovative ways that we've got staff on board in this case. And I can tell you that using these approaches, the engagement has actually ramped up along there. And one of the things that we try and do also is ensuring that staff have got the right skills. And again, assessing staff, asking staff the right question. For us, it's all about the staff voice. It makes a difference for us. Say also, another innovative approach for us is that we start having digital day. Before, CPD was always focused on academic staff. But for us, since the pandemic, we've also started focusing on everyone. And that means basically we've given 2 days of the year, full day, where everyone laid on tools. And actually, there's a full day for academic staff. There's a full day for business support staff. They've got a full day where they don't need to do anything more than 50-50. That means pick from a list of range of, it could be from promoting yourself on social media better, internet safety, it could be be more productive, which is using some of the institution tools such as Microsoft Office. It's anything, but 50% you choose some of the courses that develop you as a person, and 50% pick some course that develop you as a person to make you more productive with the institution. So therefore, we are committed for developing everyone within our organization.
So the research really that underpinned those decision-making processes was, I'm a big fan of a gentleman called Matthew Syed. Matthew Syed has written quite a lot of books in terms of looking at business and industry and what makes business better. And there was one book in particular called Black Box Thinking, which looked at how marginal gains can improve industry and certainly can improve business. And I wanted to introduce that in school as well. But on top of that as well, we as a school have introduced a coaching model approach to all of our pedagogical improvements within the school. So without even thinking about digital technology, we really value the importance of coaching and that incremental stepped approach to improving teachers within the classroom and certainly improving the learners of young people. So that approach was already embedded in our school, and I thought that it married absolutely perfectly with our need to improve in terms of technology. But over the last 2 years as well, because of the way we work in schools has obviously changed, I wanted to find out from staff what they wanted in terms of their own CPD approaches and what they felt worked best for them. So from listening to staff through a series of feedback opportunities, we realized that effective CPD does come from within, where staff are invested in terms of being allowed to trial, to evaluate and to refine their own practices, but then also share those findings with their colleagues as well. This approach has helped us to both upskill staff in terms of their own understanding, but also give them a greater confidence with regards to delivering that whole school CPD to their colleagues and to their peers, and enable them to develop as leaders as well within the school. So as well as being practitioners within their own subject area, I'm asking staff now to become leaders and to lead on different aspects of technology within the school. On top of that, we're currently in the process of completing some action researches within the school, linked specifically to technology and how technology can improve pedagogy. With the help of Mark, we looked at something called the Tpac Model, which looks at how technology, pedagogy, and content work together to improve outcomes for learners. And using that Tpac model, staff representatives are currently working on those action research projects, looking at areas of how technology specifically can enhance outcomes for learners in their subject areas, with the intention then at the end of this academic year to feed back on a whole school level. So they're conducting those action research models themselves, but also taking part in active research to inform their own understanding of how that technology can improve what they want to do in their subject areas also.
And I actually come up with a model that actually worked for us. It's a model that says a CPD should not be very long, probably 45 minutes, could be longer depending on the complexity of it, right? Or the strategy you're trying to implement. But the acronym that we use basically is know, try, apply, reflect. And I'll explain. Know it basically, when a person comes to a CPD session, we give you enough information to know about either the strategy or the technology that we're offering basically. So you know it. You then have a go, which is practicing within the session. So you practice there. We then ask you to go off and try it, which is the apply. So you go off and try it basically. Once we're giving you a certain period, we then do something known as a follow-up. And this is where the reflection comes in basically, which is the follow-up. You then, it's not agenda-led. It's back everyone in, as a discussion point. What was the barriers? What did you find useful? What different students set in terms of levels of students that you find it's beneficial with? And that's how we do it basically. So that's what a good one look like. Short, snappy workshops with key takeaways, which is knowing about it, knowing how to implement it, going and implement it, but also the impact and the reflection in this case. That is what we class as a good model for us. Everyone is involved. Everyone is involved, and that's why the institution, over the past 3.5 years, we've got 3 branch of surveys. One to survey our students to understand their digital experience. Another is to survey our business support staff to understand their experience also. And also, finally, the academic staff. All of those 3 bodies make up our community. And that's another way how we differentiate our CPD, by understanding their needs.
A good one looks like, in terms of EdTech CPD, is where colleagues involved in that CPD really feel engaged in what's taking place. That engagement can come in different ways, though. When colleagues are able to take away with them ideas or techniques that they can use straight away in their classroom the very next day, but also when they feel ownership in the CPD itself and that they have collaborated in some way. And whether that's resulting in them taking a further interest in what we discussed in that CPD and certainly developing that practice even further. But more importantly, I think it's when colleagues are able to support other colleagues within the school, within that professional learning network, but certainly also further afield as well. We've got the network within the school where departments help each other, but I think the development of professional networks outside of our own school setting, working with other educational establishments, is vitally important too. Further afield collaboration and developing that professional dialogue with teachers and educators, not just in our own school, but certainly in our cluster with our primary colleagues, but also within secondary schools within the area, but also further afield. And I think ideally that's what we're trying to achieve with our own school in terms of our CPD, but certainly in terms of collaborating with colleagues further afield as well as our own. We've tried to use both approaches, really. We have got calendared sessions throughout the year, which are for all staff and for all groups of staff working on different projects to be involved in. And then to a certain extent, colleagues from different levels within the school as well. So our teaching staff and certainly our support staff are involved in all of those calendared sessions. But married to this, during the year, staff are engaged in their own professional learning, whether that's through the action research projects or other activities that they're involved in. And those activities they work on independently in the main, but then check in at different times of the year, at different intervals, either with myself or with other colleagues supporting those members of staff in that coaching capacity. And then feeding back on their progress, and certainly if they require support, that support is given to them. And I think that coaching model is really fundamental to what we're trying to achieve as a school. So really, it is a mixture of both synchronous and asynchronous learning, depending on the needs of that member of staff.
I mean, for us, the approach that we've gone for CPD is a bit of synchronous and asynchronous, basically, because we find, depending on the situation, what fits, basically, that's what we applied to the CPD delivery. Now, I must say that during the pandemic, you know what I mean, the online was perfectly working for us. Now we're back in. A lot of staff is still crying out for face-to-face training. So what we've tried to do now is to use EdTech to have a blend between the face-to-face and also the remote teaching in this case. So right now, when we do offer a CPD, we've got some staff that can still use the EdTech tool to join us virtually, and we've got those that's physical in the room. So we're trying to do a mixture of both at the moment in time. Now, I can say that for us, in terms of delivering, using EdTech tools to deliver CPD, we've used key tools like Sway as an example. I've talked about Microsoft Forms before, but Sway is another example that we've used because we try to vary the platform of delivering the CPD content in this case. So we've used Sway, where we've got in Sway, we will have videos with instructions, and then videos with overlay quizzes to ask the staff and stuff like that. Put in links to actually pop out to find out more about the topic or strategy. Then we've got a reflective form in there. So everything is packaged in one place. So it's easy for the staff along there. So that's one way we've actually, and the good thing about it is, again, that is personalized. The staff can do it in their own time. And any new staff that come onto the college now, they can actually complete those program there. Another innovative way that we've looked at this also is we've actually done like a physical session, and then we've asked staff to actually use Flipgrid to then record what they've learned, how they're going to try the EdTech tool in that space. And then what we do basically is just before we do the reflex session, which is the catch-up session, we then ask staff to watch your video again. Have you done what you actually said you was going to do in terms of implementing it, and actually come back to the team? So that's another way of using Flipgrid to understand what our staff was eager at the start of just what completing a webinar session or a physical session, and then do the reflection and see if their outcome that they wanted to achieve, if they have achieved it, what are the barriers of the EdTech tools with the audience, what can we learn from that? So there are different ways that we've used both platforms in this case. And I can say also, using this method where you can have a personalized or way of CPD activity, it does provide more engagement, more staff complete it independently, but also by looking at the rating of what staff has rated themselves after, you can then again personalize that CPD, and that is using EdTech tool to be effective way of differentiating CPD.
There you go. It's only taken 9 episodes. Finally, I got there. Bookie's give me the thumbs up. I always give it a grief for not being muted. There you go. There's my report. I've really enjoyed interviewing Conrad and Anthony on how they are innovating and merging professional learning with educational technology use to drive skills for all the stakeholders, not just the teachers in their school communities. I think there's lots of wisdom and sense being shared there. And it was great to interview them. Ronan, Bookie, I think we'll invite Ronan on next, I think, according to the schedule. Hi, Ronan.
Hello, Ollie. Okay. I wasn't sure if it was Bucky next or me, but absolutely, I can crack on. So what I'll do is I'll share my news first of all, and then I can explain the esports segment. So my news this month relates to a report that was very recently published by T4 Education and the Edtech Hub. And the report looks at how the pandemic impacted teachers and school leaders in low and middle income countries. Focus group discussions were held with teachers and leaders in Bangladesh, India, Nigeria, Pakistan, the Philippines, and South Africa. Some of the outcomes from the study were that many teachers used EdTech tools for assessment, so assessment being a key part of how they used EdTech. Also, many participants explained how they had to resort to asynchronous learning approaches due to the reliability of some of the technology they had access to. Another issue was sharing devices within families and siblings, and also mobile data costs was highlighted in the study as being problematic in a lot of areas. Perhaps the biggest outcome was that they stated that if governments are to actually address learning gaps that have widened during the pandemic, then they really need to ensure that effective techniques are put in place now for teachers to be able to progress monitoring to actually identify those gaps. So that's my news for this month, and thanks for Mark for sharing the link to the report. It's free. You can download it from that link, just a short sign up to get access to the full report. Moving on then to my segment for this month. The focus of the segment was esports and education. It's something I've had a bit of interest in for a while. Something I've been interested in learning about. I've been using Minecraft in the schools I've worked in, and doing a little bit of esports essentially through having build competitions and so on, but interested in learning more about the actual industry of esports. So I start off with what esports is, then delve into the benefits, and then of course unpick the whole debate around whether it's actually considered a sport or not, and of course the importance of making esports inclusive for everyone. And among my guests, I had Dan Martinez, the CEO of Fuse Cup, Stephen Reed, who works for Microsoft as the Senior Customer Engagement PM, and Tom Dorr, Head of Education at British Esports. So Ollie, if you could hit my video up, please.
Esports is organized, competitive, human versus human video gaming. So it's very different from in your bedroom on your own, playing against a computer, stereotypes of video gaming. There are about 40 different titles that are 40 different video games that are classed as esports by the community, by the video game community, but also because they allow this human versus human, mostly team versus team competition. So in the same way that we know that young people, we acknowledge in schools and colleges that young people develop a range of holistic character skills through playing team-based or being part of a team-based activity, be that traditional sport, be that music, be that drama. All the same characteristics can be applied to playing esports because you're playing as part of a team with other people. So for example, leadership, teamwork, communication, decision-making, problem-solving, strategic thinking can all be developed by young people playing esports. Esports allows schools, colleges to engage a wider demographic of young people. So if young people aren't into traditional sports, if they're not into music, drama, arts, where are they getting their team-based activity from? Where are they then being able to have their success celebrated for representing their school, representing their college in the same way as they would through those traditional activities?
Look, there's loads of educational benefits of students participating in esports. I think when we bring esports into a school setting, we can really structure positive gameplay. We can structure critical thinking. We give students the opportunity to showcase their leadership skills in ways that they do outside of school anyway. So it's about giving them more opportunities to celebrate success, build teamwork, build critical thinking, and just be supportive team members for each other.
My background is in game-based learning. I've spent 20 years in the education space using games as a tool for teaching and learning. And I've used 140 off-the-shelf games, the kind of games that children are really excited about. And we pull them down, we audit them, wrap them in curriculum and pedagogical practice, and redeliver them back into education as those critical tools for learning and teaching. And I've done that and been very blessed to do that in over 60 countries around the world. And that is done in 3 different pillars. The first is explicit curriculum, math, science, literacy, history, and so on. The second is social and emotional learning. How can we use games to put children into scenarios and situations that develop their social and emotional awareness with their peers and themselves and society in general? And that includes our teaching the tough stuff work. So one of my big projects is gender equality, the refugee crisis, race relations, social and emotional learning through religious tolerance and celebration, for example. And then the third pillar is career development. How can we use games to put children in careers in not just games development, but marketing and management and music production and video production and so on. And there's a whole host. There's over 400 roles that students can go into in their lives from the basis of gaming and game-based learning. But one of the critical areas that I work in at the moment and have done for many years is esports, and not just esports in education, but specifically esports as education. And one of the most important roles, I think, and I'll head this off by saying that esports is one of the fastest, gaming in general, but esports as well, is one of the fastest growing fields. It's one of the fastest growing industries, actually. It's multi-billion-dollar industry and growing every day. And so the job roles, which I talked about earlier, are just vast and growing constantly. There's now BTECs in esports and the esports industry. But significantly, my passion is in how esports, collaborative, creative and competitive gaming systems can be used to teach children those 3 pillars that we talked about earlier, significantly using things like the Minecraft Make and Model esports series for helping teachers to ascertain, as children build out in Minecraft competitively, say a section of a human heart, for example, or a working volcano for geography, specific comprehension of curriculum. And kids just thrive on that. They're like, you mean I get to go into Minecraft and prove to you that I know how the human heart works? sign me up. So it's ultimately really assessment is what we're talking about, but also significantly the social and emotional element as well. Our children, especially under this COVID cloud that we've been under for the last 2 to 3 years, our children are thriving in esports programs that we're setting up around the world. And so if you ask me, what is the most important element of esports in the education space? It's those two. It's the comprehension of curriculum in a competitive, collaborative, and creative way, and also the social and emotional space that esports puts our children into.
So in the UK, esports is classified as a game, not a sport. So the same as chess or bridge. In other countries around the world, it is classified as a sport, in the same way that other mind games are classified as a sport. In reality, it doesn't really matter. Esports is a thing. Esports is an activity in its own right that our young people are proactively involved with, both playing it and engaging with it as spectators. The viewership figures around esports are staggering. They really are. The global esports industry, the viewership figures match traditional sports. But what we are conscious of is that esports is a sedentary activity on the whole. So it's got to be played in balance. It's got to be played in moderation as part of a healthy, balanced lifestyle. In the same way that you recommend for all other activities to doing things to excess is not healthy for you. As an example, in my own school, I have a student who's a county tennis player. He's a sub 24.5 second 200-meter runner. He's a sub 11.5 100-meter runner. He also plays in the esports team. Likewise, there's other students who don't represent the school in any other activity, any other traditional activity, who are part of the esports team. So actually, it is a hugely beneficial activity for a whole range of different young people. Like I said, it can engage a broader demographic of young people. When it comes to arguments around screen time, well, would you prefer young people to be watching lots of social media or watching silly videos of cats, or would you prefer them to be playing with their friends in a stimulating environment, in a team-based environment? In balance, in moderation, esports is a very good, very positive thing.
Look, it's an interesting argument. I guess, one of the things to consider is it's actually being included in the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham this year. It's been part of the Asian Games this year as well. And there's a lot of talk and speculation that esports will be included as an Olympic sport. And I guess the other thing to consider is, it wasn't that long ago where people wouldn't consider chess a sport, whereas it's now renowned as a strategic mastermind type of sport. Esports is exactly the same. In fact, the hand-eye coordination, the rapid movement, the decision-making, the teamwork, the strategic kind of thinking behind it, the critical thinking, there's actually a lot of skill involved to get really good at an esport. It's no different to any other sport. It's just utilizing a different set of requirements rather than the whole traditional notion of sport.
And one of the ways in which I've often discussed this and debated this on the public forum is how we define sport. And it's funny because in order to be able to define sport, we have to be able to define play. And play is one of those things that we are very good at knocking out of ourselves as we move into certainly our adulthood, but even way before that. I mean, I'll give you an example. If we in primary schools and some high schools in the UK, our break times are called playtime. And so we tell our children at age 5 and 6, when they get to school, there is a time for play and it is 15 minutes during the day. And that's it. And that's a very, very powerful opposite message from what they've been told for the first kindergarten 5 years at home with their parents, in the home environment kind of space, and so at 5 and 6 years old, and then onwards, we say, hey, there's playtime, and then everything else is not, and that continues into our adult life, where suddenly, and I often give the example of climbing a tree. If I went outside right now, as I am, and I climbed a tree in the middle of a park, someone would phone the police, because grown men don't climb trees. If a child climbed the same tree, people would say, oh, look at him, or he'll fall, or where's his parents? We need to keep an eye on this, but look, he's having fun. It would be okay. It would be a point of discussion. Kids scramble up and down trees. But I wouldn't be allowed. I would literally, there's a man climbing a tree in a park, a grown man. And so instead, we do rock climbing in centres that we pay for. I'm a member of the Edinburgh International Climbing Centre, and I have to pay an exorbitant subscription to go climb on some rocks with some. We're very, very good at taking play and stripping it down. And sports is one good example of that. You're not really playing. You're a footballer. Now, really, you're just football started soccer for any of our international friends, but football starts with us kicking a ball around a park as a kid. We're playing. But when we get older, it's very serious business, very serious indeed. In fact, it's literally business. And it's the same with our, whether it's hockey or basketball or American football or whatever, suddenly sport becomes this very serious, very controlled thing. And so I think that's one of the problems with the argument about sport and esport is now we've got lots of sporting people going, hang on a minute, you can't include that. But it starts with kids playing video games. Then they get serious about it. Then they realize they're good at it. Then they realize they can compete and they can collaborate effectively in these wonderful teams. And then they can be very creative about how they do it, whether it's strategic creativity or whether it's literally creative, building creativity in Minecraft. And suddenly they realize that they have the same skills in the same ways that other sporting athletes have. And yet they're told it's not real. It's not really a sport, is it?
It's not just about physical ability. So allowing students from a whole range of different backgrounds and a long range of different skill sets to participate is a great way to build a culture of inclusivity. In our competition in the Fuse Cup, we only choose games that are non-violent. You can see behind me, we also have games like Just Dance. So that's a great way to encourage and support more female gamers in esports. And it's something we actively have done to change our competition, because in the first couple of years, we didn't see many girls participating in esports, and being big advocates for increased female participation, not only in esports, but in STEM, we had to do something about that. So bringing in Just Dance was a game changer for us. It instantly brought hundreds of girls into our competition. It changed the dynamic of our competition. And that's not just to say that it's only girls participating. The boys actually love participating in Just Dance as well. So we use games that are non-traditional games in terms of, we don't have any first-person shooters in our competition. So choosing the games carefully can have an impact on the types of students who participate in esports, and then nurturing that in a safe, supportive, inclusive environment is a fundamental core value of the Fuse Cup.
In terms of inclusion and diversity, esports is age neutral as long as you're old enough to play the games via the ratings, and it's gender neutral. You can have mixed teams playing alongside each other. You can have able-bodied people playing alongside disabled people in a way that simply cannot happen or doesn't happen in traditional sports and activities. So in theory, esports is an incredibly inclusive activity. In reality, it is still a male-dominated area, okay? And at British Esports, we're working hard to raise awareness of diversity within the industry, and we run the Women in Esports campaign, and run by very talented female colleagues from throughout the industry, acting as role models. So girls and young women can really look up to the opportunities, look up to them and look for the opportunities that exist, not just within the esports industry, but within the wider STEM and digital-based industries. There's loads of opportunities, loads of examples of wider projects linked to inclusion. We're very proud of the work we've done in alternative provision schools and also in colleges, specialist colleges. For example, National Star in Gloucestershire, which is a residential college for young people with significant learning and physical needs, even life-shortening conditions. And we're very proud of the project we did last year with Xbox, putting Xboxes with adaptive controllers into those schools. We ran a FIFA tournament that was hugely successful, and we're just about to start. We've expanded the project to 8 colleges, and Xbox have kindly agreed to support us again, and so are giving those colleges Xboxes, and that project's running in the next few weeks. We've also worked with the RAF to help them establish their esports federation. We've also worked with the police force and North Yorkshire Police in particular ran a pop-up esports venue within a tough housing estate in the middle of York somewhere. I can't remember the name of the suburb. However, the local community police officers ended up playing Rocket League with the young people from the estate to break down barriers. Again, it's a modern, relevant, exciting, engaging vehicle with which to motivate and hook young people in. And beyond that, to then deliver messages around careers, around education pathways, education opportunities. I strongly, strongly urge you to look into esports, to understand more about esports, to look at what your young people are doing, because they're doing this already. Understand how it can be used as a vehicle to motivate, to engage, to hook young people into an activity that is linked to STEM, that has inherent links to all things STEM, all things digital, and all things creative.
Thank you, Ronan. That was a really interesting feature. I mean, every feature is really interesting, but as someone that loves games and things like that and esports, it was just really interesting to hear the different insights, and particularly some of the initiatives to try and make it more inclusive. So I will share my EdTech news, and next month actually features the 4th edition of London EdTech Week. It will take place between Monday the 20th of June to Sunday the 26th of June. And it is a week-long celebration looking at the now and the next of the future of learning and work. Now, they have actually made it so that anyone around the world can actually take place and bring aspects of the EdTech into their community, or they could actually join in using the link, the details that Mark has been shared, that's been shared, and either do something with their community to actually raise a profile on EdTech and link it to London EdTech Week, or actually attend in London with over 5,000 global participants. So something I'm definitely looking forward to, and I hope we can actually join in with it as well. I will now move swiftly on to my particular video feature, which report, which is something that is dear to my heart, something I'm still learning. It's linked to the theme of assistive technology. It was really, really challenging actually creating this particular report, because everything that was shared was was absolutely brilliant. So this will just give you a sample of the many highlights that our guests, 3 guests, actually shared this evening, and I look forward to actually sharing the report right now. Technology is an essential tool that helps students and teachers within special school and mainstream setting. It provides a means to enable students to live healthy, independent, and productive lives. In today's report, we will have 3 educators who will outline what assistive technology means to them and how it is used within their particular settings.
Yes, I'm Carol Allen. I'm from Newcastle, and I have fallen into a career of working with assistive technology. I've been doing this for as long as the first bits of kit came into our classrooms.
My name is Mika, and I'm a speech language pathologist in Maryland in the US. I work in an outpatient setting with both children and adults with communication disorders. And I also do feeding therapy for children with pediatric feeding disorders. I love my job, and I'm really passionate about supporting individuals with disabilities.
My name's Jules Dawby. I'm an assistant head in a special school in North Dorset. Passionate about assistive technology. Part of my job now is curriculum, teaching and learning. I'm an induction tutor for ECT. And an SEN specialist.
I would argue that all technology is assistive technology, and I would argue very strongly now that we need to take the word assistive out and just talk about technology. But if you, the way it is understood at this present moment in time is that assistive technology is the use of technology to, I guess, I mean, the harsh way of saying it is to address a deficit model. If somebody struggles with motor ability and they can't handwrite or they can't type, they can use speech to text back. I mean, that's assistive technology. It's something that will do a job for you either easier, quicker, or because you can't do it yourself.
Assistive technology is anything or any software or device that allows an individual with disabilities to improve functional skills, or to in the school setting to access the curriculum.
Assistive technology really for me is removing barriers. So it can be as simple as struggling to spell. So a spell checker for me is assistive technology, because it frees your mind up to be able to write without having to worry about spelling. So it increases the vocabulary for some pupils, right up to AAC here. So we have augmented communication. So we may use iPads so children can speak using an iPad. Or we might have eye gaze, where some pupils use their eyes to communicate.
I like technology that we can find anywhere. So I would always start from what I call a baseline. What is the minimum that I can do to get that person started? That's what I return to time and time again. So things like speech to text, text to speech. But if they say to me, oh, we've got Apple at home, I say, right, this is how you do it on your iPad. If they or your iPhone or your MacBook Air, whatever you're lucky enough to have. If they say to me, oh, we use Google, I say, right, this is what you do it here. But as the children get a little bit older, so when they're not really children, teenagers, I make sure to expose them to it on all three platforms. And that means if they go to somebody else's house and they use Microsoft, they still know how to do it. If they go to the library and want to work there, and the library has particular setup, they know how to do it. So I guess what the stuff I return to time and time again is baseline access that you don't have to have the very specialist kit for. It's a big problem. So there are lots of associated problems when you go specialist. For example, if you've got a wheelchair user who's using an iPad mounted on their wheelchair, and then you go outside into bright sunlight, sometimes it's very, very hard to see, to see the iPad. The visibility can go. So
I would say the low-tech communication boards, and that's because those are, sometimes parents find it a lot easier to use those at home. And say a board will have sometimes 20 to 28 symbols. And I can make copies for myself at work and also hand it to each parent. And then that's something they can easily walk around with at home or put it in places where their child has access. And so it really helps to promote that carryover. And as I said, once parents are more comfortable starting there, then I do whatever it takes to make sure that they feel supported, and I'll work with them. So that's the one I go back to a lot, and I start there. And then once the child gets comfortable and the parent feels more comfortable with using a high-tech device that will provide more opportunities for their child to use language, then we work on getting them to that stage. And then we use the devices I just told you about, or the programs or software. But to answer your question again, the low-tech core vocabulary boards, I find myself going back to a lot.
A positive from COVID is that we have more laptops than we've ever had before, because the DfE gave us lots of laptops through COVID. So, and the impact of that is being visible around the school, because now every class we can get laptops out and we can use it. So Clicker, again, I talk about, I can use that all the time now, rather than just having one or two pupils on it and the rest of the class handwriting. So it's the one I go back to every time. I think the pupils love it. things like predictive text are really useful for it. The fact they can listen to the words really helps, and then all the different grids so that you can give them all the difficult words. I had to cover a lesson the other day and I went straight onto learning grids for germination. Found a book, they could read, they could put their headset on, read the book about germination. Then we went and there was a grid so they could build up sentences using the keywords without having to worry about spelling them. If they didn't know what they said, they can highlight the word and then hear it and think that's the word I need. So, you know, it's completely accessible software, easy to use, intuitive, and it's something for literacy based work in any subject is amazing. So that is the one I go back to all the time, I think.
Okay, so a lot of the children I work with, or say some of them, have difficulties using language, or for those who have trouble using words to speak, then I typically use a low-tech assistive technology system. So it could be, say, a piece of a paper, and on that paper, or it's something that I would print from the web where we work on core vocabulary words. And core vocabulary words are those words like go, stop, that they need to function in the community. And I typically take that, make it into a board, print it out. And when we're doing language tasks, say, for example, we are reading a story about the Three Little Pigs. And the Three Little Pigs, we know that the wolf comes to their houses and he tries to blow them down. And say the target would be the word go. And every time we want the little pig to run, I would say, go, go, go. And my student or my client would hit go on the core board to signal to me that they want me to say go, or they want the pig to go. And I would hit a button and we see that reaction. And we work, that's how we address core vocabulary words and build language. Here we also use high-tech devices as well. Some will be on the iPad, like LAMP, that's language acquisition through motor planning. And it helps them to express themselves, a lot of different words organized by pronouns, helping verbs, and different categories of words for children and adults to express themselves. And then there's the touch chat, and I like touch chat word power. I actually have it here. Brought it to show you. I have the light version on my iPad here. So as you see, some of the pronouns here are in yellow, and some verbs are in green, and other words are in different colors. And so once you hit one button, it takes you, say, for example, you hit I want, it will populate other verbs like I want, or actions. I want to go, I want to jump, I want to eat. And so these are some of the AT devices I use here.
So we have a range of assistive technology. So we have some communication aids, which is where the iPad will speak. So Prolo, Quota Go, and Grid are two of our very common ones. We have eye gaze, which I talked about, where eyes can be used to communicate. We also have my favorite, it's always been my favorite software package, and I always say I'm not on commission, is Clicker. So Clicker is sort of word processing package, but it speaks the words. It has a clever spell checker. It has something called Picturize, so you can put in images with words, and there's this thing which I call the twinkle of the internet, which is learning grids, which is basically loads of resources for all subjects that you teach, where people have already set up some grids for children to learn, so they can put in words and pictures and build up sentences or write great paragraphs. So that's useful. Something else we're trying to use more and more of is the free package from Office 365, which is Immersive Reader, and using Dictate, and so using something like this so we can talk.
The one thing I would like to stress is the importance of parent carryover. A lot of times devices are issued to students in the school setting, and they may not always be allowed to take that device home. So when thinking of ways to carry over, if a child cannot bring a device home, then see if there are ways for you to print out boards or make boards of that device and take it home, or send it home to parents so that they can carry over whatever the child is learning in the school setting. Again, back to those 3 words I mentioned: go, stop, and more. Say, for example, those are the words the child is working on in the school setting, and the device has to stay at the school. Then I would print out a board that matches the device so that the child has access to that somewhat at home and can work on those words, and so that the parent has an opportunity to practice with the child while they wait on getting a device to use at home as well.
So, for instance, if I was talking about dyslexia, I think even just the free immersive reader and dictate on Office 365 and Google's equivalent is really useful. And alongside that, a good laptop, that has the power to be able to, with good memory. For speech and language, there are lots out there. We're looking a grid, for instance, is really useful because it has core vocabulary. So we're looking at core vocabulary a lot, and that's linking to the assistive technology. Also, Clicker has amazing apps on the iPad or on the laptops where you can begin to build sentences, so you can do your subject, verb, object, your SVO sentences and things like that. That's really useful. So that's something we use. Look at dictate and having good headsets where pupils can talk and it types for them, so that speech to text is really useful. For the visually impaired, I think it's really there are a lot of useful resources, and where I would go in my head, but it's the RNIB, and it's a place where any book you can have an electronic copy of it. So if you own the ISBN number, then you can have the electronic version of the physical book, so they could have it read to them, or there's got a screen reader so it reads everything on the screen. So there's lots of amazing technology. For hearing impairment, again, there's lots of there's some new tech coming out where when you sign something, it will recognize the sign, and then there's some other technology where you can it's reads people's body language. So you take the picture of something that's happening and the software will tell you what those two people are doing. So it's around sort of being able to read body. Even synthetic voices are getting better and better. So when you have that Graham, from the sat nav reading your novel, the voices are getting more and more brilliant. So you can't even tell they're synthetic voices anymore. For pupils with speech and language, just hearing the text read improves their comprehension, because they're not worrying about decoding or putting the lilt in the voices and stuff. They're just hearing that voice. And I've known some pupils, once they can hear the text, but actually that fluency of text is really important for comprehension. So assistive technology can be used.
Always got to remember the microphone. Takes me back to home learning every time. Bucky, that was absolutely fab. Such an important topic. So many takeaways, fab stuff. Also, Ollie, your segment was great as well this evening. Thank you. And of course, a thank you to Mark for beavering away behind the scenes. And of course, a huge thank to all of our guests on all 3 segments this evening. We really hope you're enjoying this show, whether you're catching up on Twitter or other platforms, whether you're watching this over the weekend, anytime at all. Please do get in touch with us. If you have any ideas for future segments, or if you'd like to get involved in any capacity, please let us know. We're, of course, on Twitter at global_edtech, and, of course, www.global-edtech.com for our website. So we will be live again on the 30th of June. That'll actually be our last episode for this school year, with a July break, but then we'll be back again on the 25th of August. So finally, everyone, thank you for joining us.